Welcome back to Refrain Chord. Alright, let's end this.
It is true, I did not end up drinking it for the sound part.
Well, like I've told you, okay, fun story, everybody in the audience. Before we even did this playthrough, I told Teo was wondering if he would do a repeat of last time's stunt. And I told him right away, don't worry, this game is not really worth it. Not really. This game is just mediocre. It's not even offensive.
Elaborate for the final thoughts. Right, sure.
Right, sure.
That's what you tell yourself to sleep well at night, okay.
Honey, you lost hope.
I think Alternate Neck who had a great line for this. Hey Junown, the price of sucking, I'm afraid.
Oh, that is true. There was an entire reason why they wanted to summon the evil goddess.
Yeah, exactly.
The outer beings that were supposed to invade.
Okay, I will give it credit. I'll give them credit. Fang just said a really good line. Sounds like the whining of a loser to me. Yeah, thanks, Fang. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So loser even.
All right, 1 point for one good line.
You know, I'll ask Junown the same thing I asked her the last time. Did you ever think that maybe opening up with, hey, the evil goddess can save us from this, instead of acting all maniacal?
Well, to be fair, Jova, she's called the evil goddess. It's kind of hard to try to sell her as an empathetic, beneficial entity when she's literally called the evil goddess.
It's like if someone arrived and said Cthulhu is about to invade the planet and the only person who can stop him is Stalin and to revive him, you know?
And admittedly, yes, a bit of a problematic name, though then that begs the question, why not call her by something else other than the evil goddess? Like, it's not like... somehow I doubt evil goddess is her actual name, and when she comes she'd say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm the evil goddess.
Well, as far as both of these games tell us, Jova, the real names of the deities are Vile God and Goddess. And they're just as generic as evil goddess, so honestly...
Which is unfortunate, because when it came to creating a mythology, even, again, for all its problems, the 13th trilogy did manage to create, mythos with clear names for deities without giving away their morality system.
So, I wonder, is this story implying that the alternate beings that Junown was afraid of was Allen Company?
No.
Who we have to deal with?
No, it's more about, again, it's the same thing that was said at the end of Dark Force. These, again, Eldritch Abomination, the Hounds of Tyndall, that are supposed to actually get to the planet, and the evil goddess is apparently the only thing that can stop them. And when Dark Force did end it with Fang and the others saying, no, we're gonna stop them again.
I admit, I kind of thought that because it seems like the conversation transitioned from that into us talking about taking down Albert again.
If I had to guess, I suppose that the mysterious figure that's totally important for, this new sequel look might be like an ambassador of these beings.
And maybe those two hooded beings from Advent Dark Force were also
the old man and
ambassadors
Andrew, I suppose. But it's just speculation.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, why we shouldn't have to be doing all of this. Like, seriously, tie up your fucking loose ends, developers. Jesus Christ! Like, it feels like such a slap in the face to people who, in theory, liked the original game and want to see that loose end tied up. And what do they get? They get a game that is completely unrelated. Well, okay, not unrelated. I mean, let me rephrase that. That is basically ignores most of what the previous game did, and not only that, throws another sequel hook at you.
More like a redraft of the story of the evil goddess route, admittedly.
Except, I hate to say it, while it's not as painful, it does overall feel weaker than the original narrative. Especially since you need to have played the original to get a lot of the character development that leads up to the point that this game kind of starts.
Yeah, because
the fun begins.
like me and Terry have talked about before, the deities in this game are all are basically more like background things rather than being a focal point like they were in the previous game.
Well, more in the way they are defined. In terms of lore, I actually do not mind. It's more that the fact that, you know, the writers just decided to label them with such simplistic terms.
But it's one of those things
Also,
where...
this time the background is a nice luminous green with some rainbow elements. Pretty.
Well, this background was already in Event Dark Force.
Check out my RGB settings.
I'm pretty sure it was a different color though.
Nope. It's the Zawaza Plains, Jova, from the original game.
I can tell you, Jova, that yes, when I did check the backgrounds, the other part, I noticed that one too.
Well, yeah, true, from the original game.
And this one is from Advent Dark Force, specifically the hotel that Tomoe gave us in the Evil Goddess route. Trust me, Jova, if they were able to cut a corner, they cut it. Trust me.
Except for those weird tiny bits where they did add in that extra detail. Okay, seriously, I know it might never happen, but if there's ever a game I wanted to get a what happen of, it is this. Incredibly obscure, but gosh darn it, I just need to know what was the exact method to the madness and what they decided to cheap out on and what they decided, no, this actually does deserve our full effort on.
So now Fang is...
Like I mentioned, it's not even consistent what they cheap out on.
So now Fang is poking her forehead to tease her, and because she's being mopey, because I'm the descendant of the vile god. That's the other thing, by the way. Tiara being... Yeah, that's the other thing. Outside of just the occasional throwaway moment like this one, the fact that Tiara is a descendant of the vile god doesn't really become a significant thing in the story at all, aside from like the occasional moment where someone tries to kidnap her. But like the original game, go on.
That's because, ironically, despite the main bad guy having a beef with the goddess and vile god, the goddess and vile god have a noticeably much lesser involvement in the role compared to Advent Dark Force.
Yeah, and Tiara coming to terms with her lineage is again put completely in the back burner, not really a focus.
I hate sand.
Yeah,
You know,
rough course.
Yeah.
I honestly wonder.
See, even the game is making that reference. See?
Yes, of course, they're both irritating.
Okay. To be fair, Japan loves Star Wars, so
Not
I
even that,
can totally see
Jova.
them having done
At the
that.
very least, it's not referencing Ghostbuster or a PC content.
Oh sure.
I'll take
Not
that.
to mention this is this one is not Team Neptunia technically, but this is a Team Neptunia creation, and Team Neptunia is all about the pop culture references anyway. So whatever.
Yeah, I mean, look, KJ Nafune was literally a
Yeah.
weapon in one of their.
So
video games.
this is just what they do.
Okay, that being said, I wonder if the mentality behind the makers of this story was, to understand this game, you need to have played the original anyway, so technically you already got the character development for the characters in Advent Dark Force.
You know what
I'm
would
not
have
saying-
helped Jova to release this as a companion piece DLC to the Advent Dark Force instead of a standalone game?
It truly would have. Again, like you theorized, Tio, I wonder if this originally was supposed to be DLC to it, but because it was so late, I guess they didn't want to re-release the game yet again.
Or because
essentially.
Idea Factory, as Pedro noted, tends to love to try to find a way to squeeze as much money from customers as possible. They might have done this.
Oh yeah, no, there's all of those are equally valid. The thing is, like I said, again, I have no evidence to prove this. Blah blah blah. This is all speculation on the end, but it wouldn't surprise me otherwise. Because remember, Neptunia V2 came out in 2015, and right after that is where they made their second big push for Fairfence Rev with Advent Dark Force, right? And after that, there hasn't been a single mainline Neptunia game in almost 10 years now. I really believe that Naoko and her team genuinely were trying to see if they could make this their next big franchise, and they wanted to move on from Neptunia, because again, the fact that they left the Neptunia franchise for other developers to make spin-offs of for 10 years kind of says a lot, doesn't it? You know.
It's funny also because now by the time of this recording, Neptunia is finally making something of a mainline return, and this feels like the hackneyed spin-off or whatever follow-up project where people probably wanted a main sequel.
That being said, what was up with that 10th anniversary trollage, man? For those who don't know,
I think you mentioned one of the previous.
Did I?
Pedro.
Okay,
yes.
okay, never mind then.
All the same though, it was weird, but yeah.
Seriously, like, people want a new mainline game, Neptunia 5. Oh, it's actually a remake of 1. Okay, fuck off. Anyway, yeah, Albert wants, Albert doesn't want, and blah 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 blah.
Okay. I will admit, the Junown plot did not end as abruptly as I thought it would, but I do find it funny that we don't even kill her, which just...
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, it ended?
Yeah, it ended. So that's the thing. We're done with Junown. Now we're...
I thought they were going to see, she was going to say, oh, I'm gonna get you, in a bit and everything. Nobody just disappears like that.
No, at this point we're back to the Glace and...
are essentially her just lamenting the fact that, oh, the world is doomed because only the evil goddess could save us.
It's just the fact that, I thought it was going to play a bit of a part also in the climax.
Can you just put earplugs in?
It feels like what Web said. It feels like they ran out of ideas for what to do with Junown, so they decided to just fuck it.
I mean, she did lasted longer than I was expecting, but still.
And again, I mean, technically it's a net gain for her. She didn't die this time.
Here's what they should have done. Flat out make it so that Glace and Albert go into a completely different direction instead of just reverting back to the same climax as before, just phrased differently. Like, go all out with the alternate routes. I don't understand why we have to revert back to what is basically the same climax. Again, it's done a bit differently, yes, because the last time we weren't here. I get it. But still, it still boils down to the same thing. We have to convince Glace that we have to solve Albert. Then we have the final confrontation with Albert. Again, it's the same basic climax, really.
Again, if we're going again to the speculation that this was the original route that they wrote and the other one was the afterthought, it's one of the cases that they did recycle the climax of this for that one instead.
Well, yeah.
I will give them credit. Like, once again here, I do prefer this version, if only because now even Glace feels like she has more agency here as opposed to just, oh, I have to do it for Albert. Like, oh snap. Get down, Mr. President!
That reminds me. While I was editing the last part, I noticed that Wibbs asked a question and I never got around to answering it. The reason I got the PS4 version instead of the PS5 version, Wibbs, is because of two reasons. One, I kept to play it on both of my consoles instead of just the 5, right? Second, the game runs at 60 FPS in both versions. There's literally no difference between versions, so I might as well stick with the one that I can play in multiple systems. Not to mention, playing the PS4 version on the PS5 speeds up your load times anyway. So even that is not really a thing that's much of a difference. So there's not really much of a reason for me to get the 5 version.
I am legit still surprised that they bothered to make a PS5 version.
And remember, this game still looks like a Wii game anyway. So it's just, I mean,
okay, I want to be fair. It's mostly a visual novel style game with, flat sprites. So
that is true.
These graphics I won't be as hard
Sure.
It's but I will give you that about the in-game graphics.
But that being said, Jova, remember, in the same year that this game came out, they also released Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters. And if you take a look at the visual novel sequences of that game, the sprites are much more animated and therefore much more visually interesting. Whereas this game, the characters look so static and unanimated.
That I will definitely give you. The animation is lacking, absolutely. The art style looks like it could be considered enough for fidelity, but no, the actual animation or lack thereof is a deal breaker. Well, I don't want to say an absolute deal breaker because, you know, we see some of this and stuff like
yeah,
this.
like I always try to avoid comments like it looks like a PS2 game or a Wii game, like it's supposed to be a detriment. Usually.
No. Well, here's the thing, Teo.
Okay, I get it about the base price, but if that is the concern, like you said, you could just, you know, work smarter, not harder, and wait for like a sale.
Well, okay, that is true, Teo. But at the same time, I want the Neptunia. Okay, not this one. Like, let's pretend for a moment that I'm a fan of Neptunia. I want the Neptunia series to actually move forward instead of just feeling like it's stuck in a bubble and never, you know, progresses, advances, evolves. You know. Because there's only so many times I can play a game of the exact same character models until I get tired and just feel this feeling of been there, done that, you know? Eventually you have to evolve at some point, you know?
I will say, it's possible to still use old visuals and have your own stylistic take on it. Heck, some people actually do dig older looking graphics in some way, shape, or form, so I won't say it always comes down to, oh, this looks like an older game style or whatnot, because no, sometimes that can be used to a game's benefit. I just don't really care for how the animation style lack there is in this game, because I feel it hurts the storytelling.
If this was an indie developer, I would be singing a completely different tune. But this is not an indie developer. This is a developer who has been around for nearly 30 years and always sells games at full price. You know? And as far as I can tell, it's not that they're exactly, you know, lacking in finances. They just choose to cheap out because that way it increase profits, right? And to me, and that practice to me feels very cynical. You know what I mean? This doesn't feel. When I look at the in-game graphics of this game, I don't feel like this was an intention on. I get the feeling if Naoko was given a chance, she would make a game that would look like a PS4 game at least. I get the feeling this is just the executives who don't allow the developers to go past a certain limited budget because they want to make sure that they maximize profits as much as possible. That's the feeling I get. Go on.
Also, I guess this justifies why Zag is not present in the climax of this version.
Yeah, true.
Kudos on that. I guess for me, what looks like this or that game from a certain genre is relative. And whether or not that's a bad thing is another thing. Like, for example, Mighty Number 9 looking like an old PS2 game. Yeah, that's a case where I do consider it bad because they were clearly trying to go for something better. Here, I don't want to say looking like a Wii game is automatically bad because it's clear that the... Is that Zenke come to help us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey guys,
Wait. Zenke actually does something in the final climax instead of just faffing off and, you know, going up.
Hold on, Jova. Don't count your chickens just yet.
Well, like I said, I guess he's going to help Zagi, which is a kind of sort of a reference on how the two teamed up in the Evil Goddess route.
So basically, just so that Sherman can go off and do the thing, Zenke will come here and help, basically.
Again,
it's at the very least something, because in the other route he really just disappears.
Yep.
Like, again, holy cow, I think I might be willing to say this is the definitive route at this point. Like, sure, yeah, I mean, admittedly, maybe AJ doesn't get all the great... Well, again, I can't even be sure for certain, because assuming that the side quests are the same, AJ does at least get their good writing there, so... But still, though, holy cow, plot points actually feel like they land in this version of the finale.
I still wish Zenke had an actual character arc.
No, trust me, like, it is nothing amazing, like, but, again, holy cow, I mean, this ending really actually, you know, does stuff with its stuff, like, I think the difference just emphasizes how much the other route tries to stick the landing, but just careens off into a cliff each time.
To me, at the end of the day, it's just a different flavor of mediocrity, to me.
Good point. He has that effect on villains.
アルレルト、もう終わりにしましょう。私、もう自分をごまかさない。
And yeah, like we've talked about before, Glace has a... okay, so I guess they decided to want to make up for for some of the misgivings they did with Glace previously, because now this time she actually does indeed turn against Al completely.
Yeah, again, like... Look, I'm not gonna act like this writing is incredible, but it's just astonishing how much better this route is than the other route narrative-wise. At least in my opinion, because it feels like stuff actually pays off. Which, you know, should be the norm anyway, but this is Fairy Friend's Ref we're talking about.
Oh, just shut up and fight me with your cannon.
How philosophical. No, it sounds like there's a lot of emotion there.
I mean, you look broken.
You say that, but I'm the one who has the giant cannon.
Like a psycho villain.
Like he said, for Final Fantasy, the Spirits Within, maybe it's to compensate something, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the other thing. In neither of these games do we ever explore the idea that there might be other descendants of the Vile God out there. It's always either just Tiara or Bernard.
Okay, for Al's case, I get the idea he still has limited knowledge and he's focusing entirely his experiment. So at the very least, understanding him.
Oh, sure.
I get the idea maybe Bernard should know better, considering Dorfa has ramification throughout this particular continent. Or unless it really is a case where they're just not that much.
This continent or maybe this world, because I have yet to be convinced that there's a world outside of this continent.
The game tells me this, so I'll have to take that from what he says.
I get that too. It's just that I personally remain unconvinced.
Oh, so again, Pedro, if you haven't never been to Australia, so it doesn't exist.
No, but I've seen, but Theo, but don't you see, Theo? I've seen photographs of Australia. I've seen video.
No. He's seen the real proof that Australia exists. He's seen Kangaroo Jack.
There you go.
Yeah, what else says?
Again, me personally, I am definitely enjoying this route more.
Oh, boo-hoo, Al. Everybody has problems.
Even if we're technically heading to the same direction, at the very least, even when he's ramping up, at least Al doesn't sound like a, Silver Age DC comic book villain.
Oh, yeah.
Which shouts curses, Fang, fold again.
He's just a generic evil mad scientist, basically.
I'm legit wondering if at this point, if they had two completely different writers adapt the scripts for like.
No, like you said, I get
routes.
my genuine thought is that this was the first thing they written, and every other ideas that they had in mind that got discarded with writing this, they had more time to do, so they created an extra route to put them there.
It's just funny because going off of that logic, the extra route is the one that they put the most. The first to select.
I'll say this: that first route we did, the effort spent on that first route would have been better spent making this route even better. Just saying.
Yeah, I
don't know what to tell you because, as Drew also said, we don't know what happened to the relevant of this game.
That is true.
Again, for all I know, maybe that was the real case was that this route was supposed to be DLC for Avant Dark, but because it ballooned into its own thing, that other route got created as a result and attached like a 2.
Yeah, much like Jova.
I love that that's supposed to be them holding him in place,
Wait,
even though
they're
Fleur...
doing what I asked in the previous round. They're using their combined songs to hold him off.
Yep, they are.
Ah, well, there you go.
That being said, couldn't you, again...
They exploded. Oh.
That being said, couldn't you come up with at least one more glass sprite that would be more fitting for this situation? And there you go.
Sounds like it is working.
Yep. Curses! I've been foiled by the power of song!
I mean, at least it's not the loud one. Could have been worse.
Just assume there's a fire.
Why would you say it like that?
Okay, guys. If you're assuming that the world is ending, the least you do have to do is give a CG to show that something
Also,
suggests
I
the
don't get
world
it.
is ending.
What was the problem with what Rin said? If anything, Lola's line was more out of line.
There's more Rin saying the fire.
No, yeah,
She said, you know, the world is ending and yet it's still so beautiful. It's not really similar what I read something like, say, Mother 3.
Oh, I get that. No. I don't mind the line. It's the lack of visual to accompany that.
yeah. So yeah,
Back here.
let's repeat the exact same climax.
Hold on, I thought that they were beating Al.
But it's more of a case that they are allowed him to interrupt the experiment and as a result teleported here. The idea is that if they manage to stop him here, he will not be able to
Yeah,
the weapon.
Bowser is even saying that, yeah.
Okay.
Again, there's technically even more of a justification at the very least, and like I said, they did what I asked, combine their efforts into a song, because it felt really logical that eventually a climax would have involved that. Sure, maybe it doesn't affect gameplay-wise or anything, but it is something.
I wonder, maybe the logic with the we're doing great collecting furious thing is that because the heroes get too cocky in that route, things go south, and that's why it's not.
And it's the whole butterfly effect of it has the same weird effect also in Advent Dark Force. That just a very tiny minor thing changes things so radically.
And once again, the same problem. That being said, some of the same problems that I had with the climax in the original. In the other route, who knows what the original is. Also transition into this one, where again, I still don't like how Al basically gets zero comeuppance for his experimentation on children.
It's even worse than that, Pedro. Remember, it's not like he doesn't get any comeuppance, so he kind of gets a reward.
Yeah.
What the heck is he doing now?
Remember, he's operating the cannon again.
I do like that.
Well, I don't think this dialogue is left 1-to-1. It's basically what happened also in the other round.
And there you go. This time it's not so much. There you go. So Fleur and the Glace once again awaken, and they gain emotions, and blah blah blah.
We high five each other.
I will say, I do like that little bit where Al sadly says goodbye to Glace and Fleur, which gives him more awareness than what was going on in the last round, where he was just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, Professor Gerald wannabe.
I will say that. Okay, I will say that. Oh, they look like both of them are one-winged angels, like in Crisis Core.
I think that's the intended imagery, Pedro.
Sure.
They complement each other.
Well,
two halves of the same coin.
It's kind of similar also to the statue in Xenogears about the two things.
No, sure, I get that, and to this game's credit, just for the sake of me saying something positive, I do still enjoy this better than Crisis Core, because I recently replayed Crisis Core, and man, the writing is worse than I remember. Jeez.
What does it say that I still like Crisis Core, though I'll admit, whenever I think of the story, I'm mainly thinking of like the very last scene.
Trust me, Jova, that's because the ending is the highlight. Honestly,
I have to reserve a proper full discussion when we get to the
Sure.
But let me say, Jova, that the major problem with that is that I do believe the perspective of which we follow through the game is completely wrong.
yeah, that's its own epic
not
thing.
even aside from the teenage rock band kind of thing. Again, I'll elaborate when we
Yeah.
get to the game.
I'll admit, I'm glad we knew and found out about this other route. Yes, a lot of it has similar beats to the other route, but this is, I would argue, unquestionably the better route. I guess unless you prefer, like, Saturday morning...
No, stop, come back.
The other route is technically a bit more lighthearted when you
Thomas
play
still
it.
won't wake up.
Yeah. I think the best way to compare them is like, this feels like the more intense and dark, well, okay, maybe not darker, but the more, well, definitely the more intense and serious route, whereas the other route feels more like the Saturday morning cartoon plot. I mean, you know, more, it's definitely more over the top in both the villainy and heroics over there, sadly with less of the structure and sturdiness.
Alright, let's see if Flora can stop the weapon.
Then J.K. Simmons arrived, not quite my tempo.
That'd be something if this game suddenly became Whiplash.
With Miles Teller playing the role of Al.
I wish J.K. Simmons was here to, you know, tell off some of these people.
If it were Whiplash, Fleur would be a drummer.
And there he is again. It feels like the overall aesthetic of this particular sprite feels like something out of...
It looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Zaxxle monster.
Yeah. What is this, the climax of Eternal Diva now?
Didn't we already make the comparison with Little Mermaid instead?
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah. Also, I don't remember if this happened in the other round, because if it's the case, this particular thing, Al forcing Glace to sing, that provides a better justification of having Glace for the final fight to aid Al. She's
True.
literally under mind control now.
From what I recall, no, Al did not force Glace to sing for him in the other route, so... As far as I can recall,
Please,
that's
everybody.
another point in this
Guys,
fight.
let's hold hands, clap our hands if we can believe.
Yeah, it sounds like she's talking to the audience now, yeah.
I was gonna say, is this a
You
Disney show?
believe in Peter Pan, don't you, kids? Clap your hands if you believe in Peter Pan.
Apologies, Gabe. I'm too busy giving a bro fist to Jack Garland. So.
Audience, players, those watching on YouTube,
Actually, yeah.
lend us your support.
You know what, Taylor has the right idea. We need Jack to come in here. I don't give a fuck who you are. No, actually, my favorite when he's talking to Tiamat is like, I don't give. Oh, no, sorry, not Tiamat. Yeah, right, Leech. And he's like, I don't give a fuck who you are.
I'm still
We already did all the
surprised.
Awakened Power stuff, if I recall correctly.
Look,
So-
The same.
Yeah. The
Regardless
Awakened
of-
Power bits, those are the cutscenes where you choose to talk to Aaron or Tiara, so we already know how this goes.
I swear, regardless of it turning out to be a better game, that game was totally Square Enix's Shadow the Hedgehog in terms of tone and nature, and the writers expecting it to be taken seriously and being surprised when people
Well,
laughed.
to be fair,
thankfully, they were
Jova,
good sports
that's
about
because
it,
I
though.
guess you don't know that much about the entire story at all, but I can tell you that the stories all can and really should be taken seriously despite everything.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking more so about the overall tone and language and all that, which
Again, it's
does
just what the
elicit
marketing
expressions,
didn't
right?
show.
Like I said, Jova, both what
You really don't know about it.
that what Teo just said. There's also again, like I said, Jova, think of this as a long lost 2005 game that only released now. You know.
Yes. Oh, no, I have no issues with that, I assure you. Like I said, it turned out...
I mean,
And then Fang
What?
bitch slapped him.
It looked like it really hurt. That was the last Airbender line.
Yeah, that
That line.
Actually that was actually one
It's
of the
spending
better
tiny
lines
little
in that
stones
movie.
at us.
I'm gonna keep that. Sorry.
The punctuation also felt weird. It felt like it should have been a comma after the smart.
Typo.
Well, I
That's
don't
a
know
funny-
if it was intentional or not.
And that's the funny thing, Jim, and that was one of the better lines from that. Well, I think the only decent line from that movie.
I
agree. That was definitely one of the best.
I love that line from Fang. I'm totally going to be using that. Al, you may be smart, but you're still an asshole.
Okay. I'll give the game credit. Anytime that has a hero who just slaps sense into the villain, that's a plus.
I love that. I did all this because I was sad. But don't you
become a therapy session?
But don't you see?
Yeah, this is just my god. Okay, I'm not giving spoilers that much, but the biggest I can mention, the climax of Homeworld 3, a game that was released just recently, it's almost exactly like this.
Oh really?
Fucking, I don't understand all this modern writing that turns basically into therapy sessions where they really don't need it.
You see, Dwebs, I know that Al tried to destroy the entire world
Just misunderstood.
Yeah, but with Giant Cannon. But don't you see, the only reason he did it to us is because he was sad.
That's very sad to hear. I nearly got blown up.
And again, like we mentioned, experimentation on children.
You know,
just have a question. Have you seen Jet's most recent video involving Infinite? The one where,
yes, I did.
That's literally what he's doing. He's parroting something like games exactly like this when they try to do this thing.
That was the thing that I was mentioning in Sonic Adventure 2. It was nice for Amy to rationalize about Eggman, but the fucker blew up the planet 2 or 3 games later while with the Gaia manuscripts.
Okay. To his credit, everyone was still alive there. He did it in a way that would not have killed everyone, unlike what his grandpa was trying to do. So he gets some points for that. And two, admittedly, Amy wasn't talking specifically about Eggman, just people in general, which, that's what that's what Shadow needed to help out with, essentially.
I think the problem with that game, Unleashed, is that Eggman blew up the planet in multiple pieces, and yet when you take a look at the people, they don't even seem to notice it. There seems to be no impact on any. Yeah, like you'd think a plot point as heavy as Eggman blowing up the fucking Earth would have some kind of an impact on people,
We do get that cutscene with the ice cream man who's like, it happens, but we're okay.
Yeah, that's like he's like the only one though, and then when he gets unpossessed.
I was probably going to go to prison for 25 years to life because he tried to blow up everybody.
Yeah.
Well, he'll have plenty of time to think about what he's done.
It's like if me and Dwebs were all like, hey, look at that, Dwebs. It seems like the Earth has been blown up in pieces. Huh. You don't see that every day, do we, Dwebs?
I can't breathe!
You don't see that?
I guess we can headcanon that by the time of Sonic Unleashed, Sonic's world had seen all manner of,
I already mentioned also when we recorded that game job, I already mentioned, it was already weird that Gun wasn't doing anything.
Basically, Pedro, what I mean by that is, the world's been blown up. I'm scattered into space.
Yeah. Oh no, I know what you're saying. Even if I'm going to accept that, Jova, in my opinion, that doesn't lead to very interesting storytelling, because if the characters don't seem to care about the stakes of what's going on, why should I?
Even back in ancient times, I am the wicked man. So, has this become the Wicked musical now? Al seeing the error of his ways.
No, she's not glowing, Fang. That's the fifth drop.
I'd rather think about the movie and with Al played by Nicolas Cage.
So, you see, Glace, you had the fifth drop in you all along.
Maybe the real fairy fence giraffe was the fairies we collected along the way.
Okay, again, this is a... Wait, hold on. So this time the goddess shows up via Glace?
Because remember, in this timeline, the guys never got the faith drop.
Yeah.
So it was in her possession all the time.
Mm-hmm. What Teo just said.
Well, I don't want to go back now. I've changed my mind.
Well, if you don't go back, you are going to jail.
Don't worry, guys. I have the perfect canon. Al did got back in time and everything, but he accidentally went to Brazil. So.
Oh dear.
That's the ultimate. You know what? That's a good enough punishment. Go ahead.
What's so bad about Brazil?
You get permanent residence there.
I mean, he has a home at least.
Have you seen how rowdy they can be? I mean, look.
Dude, but not
You know
everywhere
what?
in Brazil is the slums, you know.
Oh, of course not. But let's just say, Dwibs, there's a reason that
Yeah,
Brazil.
trust me, Dwibs. Trust me, Dwibs. My problem.
Terrible place to live.
Yeah, trust me, Dwibs. It's not so much because it's not just because of that. It's also because of the horrible culture that permeates Brazil right now.
Favelas, I should say.
Trust me, Dwibs. I have plenty of. Trust me, Dwibs. I know plenty of Brazilian immigrants who live over here who say, "Nope, not going back there."
Look. You remember the stuff they pulled during the Olympics? That's just a taste of how bad it can get over there.
I mean, there was the World Cup thingy as well.
I think there are more pressing matters like the Amazon rainforest. I'm not sure the Olympics matter too.
Well, they built stadiums that only had a handful of games and never had anything in them again.
Yeah, we'll miss you too, Fleur, even though you'll probably never show up in any of these games, even if we get more anyway. Again, this is just me speculating. I want to emphasize this before anyone says anything, but I don't know. I get the feeling that if we do get a third game, Fleur will probably not be in it.
The only reason why I'm not contesting it immediately is mostly because Fleur is actually voiced by an accomplished singer, so it would be kind of, unless we actually recast it for the character, it would be hard to bring back unless they actually have, want to keep the cost going.
Yeah,
I guess.
They're gonna cut back.
Otherwise, with enough creativity, you can literally pull everything out of your ass, including character time traveling again.
Dwibs, allow me to take that quote, that iconic quote from Iron Man 1. Let's use who developed
Tony Stark built this in a
Tony Stark built this with a box of scraps. Well, Idea Factory is not Idea Factory is not Tony Stark.
Okay, so question: was the actress who played Fleur particularly expensive?
Yui Ishikawa. I haven't actually looked that much into her. Sorry.
Again, both her and Glace's, that's the equivalent of being kind of sort of a celebrity, which, to give you a context, Jova, when it comes to culture or for Japanese products, having a celebrity in your product is not an automatic kind of thing, unless they are something like, say, for the idol side. Like in this case, they're singers, so they're okay. But if it's like, say, a live-action actor doubling for being voice actor, they're not necessarily as well welcomed as they would be the equivalent in America. Sometimes it's the opposite effect. It really depends on the product.
I will say, if Compound Heart are actually planning, and mind you, this was just going off of our speculation, but if the plan truly was all along that these games are build up to an eventual, Secret Wars scenario where all the characters from different timelines have to team up to defeat the ultimate evil, well, you probably could have telegraphed that a little better, but I might have to respect the play. Probably not the fact that, it is absolutely something people can only go off of hope on, because, look, at least with something like the MCU, we know there's gonna be follow-up stuff. More or less needs to tie in together, but this, as far as we know, like Pedro suggested, the third game could be something completely different. Or God, imagine, what if it really is expensive to get back all the actors and instead the third game just has it all be silent?
Keep in mind, Jova, mostly just for, I was referring mostly for Glass. So all these other, voice actors are basically their part of the industry as much as everyone else is.
In the meantime, Gold now, since the goddess went away, Aaron can't teleport us back. But once again, it's okay. We have TR and QE, so she can do that.
Unfortunately, this is basically at this point the script is almost verbatim what happened the other time.
Yeah. Like I said, that's the thing. I would have preferred if the climax was more focused on Junown, honestly, because this just feels redundant.
Okay, I will say this, it didn't feel too redundant for me, but that is mostly because this felt like a much better crafted version of the script. But
and to me, is that I was running with what Pedro said. I was expecting her to not last that much in the round, but she did persevere almost to the end, so I was actually more impressed.
I guess.
I will still agree, though.
Oh, hey, Sui, you're still here. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I will say I do agree though. I find it weird how we just beat her and that's it. We don't kill her, we don't take her to jail, it's just she cries.
That's the big problem for me. If the game itself doesn't seem to really care much about this new villain they put for this route, why should I? Like, it just feels like I feel a lack of investment on part of who crafted this. Like, they couldn't even be bothered to at the very least give some kind of a satisfying resolution to Junown's character. At least haven't Dark Force bothered to try. It failed, yes, but at least it tried.
Alright, so let's go home and have a party. For a different daily...
Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on. Is that a different ending for Aaron and Tiara I see there?
So there you go. Ipfrit is trying. Ipfrit is still trying to steal Kenny from babies, and that's fine by me.
Hey, Shadow.
Ipfrit, just buy your own.
You're a grown-ass man.
You're 19, you got money.
Character arc complete, I guess. Thank you, game. I totally need. There you go, Teo. This time it's Noe who makes the pissing joke. There you go. You see, that kid peed. That means he's free. There you go, Teo. There's your pee joke.
Listen to Zenki's voice a bit again.
Okay.
Zenki's voice.
Actually, yeah, this is different.
Yeah, there you go. Bernard is going to rebuild Dorfa, a company that helps people, and not well. There you go, Teo. Bernard has a.
We're gonna make Dorfa great again.
Well, Teo, look at this way. At least Bernard, for once, gets a dignified ending. So
I wouldn't have too much of a problem with this if it wasn't for the whole child experimentation thing. It really feels if it gives the feeling that even if he understands his actions, he should not occupy his position of power and leave it to someone else.
Yeah.
Wait, what about the person in Hanagata? He doesn't die in this version last I checked, so...
Sorry, Jova, the writer forgot that he exists. Sorry.
Wait, okay, so Zenka's 22 according to the... So Zenka's 22 according to the wiki, yeah. I don't know if it's because he's jelly, but he sounds 50.
Like he said, when it came to stuff like Ever Crisis Glimpse, I get the idea you're just not used to this side of voice acting.
But there are
a lot of Japanese voices. I don't mean any disrespect to them or anything. It's just the ones I've heard. Some of them tend to make them sound older or younger than they should be.
To be fair, I would not say that every age is restrictive of how a person should sound.
Yeah, there are plenty of people.
The opposite problem with a lot of Japanese media that has an English dub for some reason get people with a deeper voice instead of what the character sounded like originally.
I think that...
Okay, admittedly, sometimes that is for the better. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Masako as Goku.
Yeah, no, I already tell you, Jova, that's one thing I'm disagreeing 100% of, so we have to reserve for another time.
Fair enough, agreed to disagree. Well, the point is, I would argue that sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse.
Like Team 4 Starnail, that was better anyway.
Well, it's like that with everything. I've heard Japanese takes on Western characters. Their take on Crash.
I can give an example from this game actually.
On the other hand,
I can actually give an example from this franchise actually, where I actually prefer Ryushin's English voice over the Japanese one. I don't know. I get what they're going for with the Japanese voice, but I don't know. The Optimus Prime voice, I feel like
it's two different stereotypes associated to a robot type of character. So maybe it's also the case when you're exposed first to what the
no, but it's I don't think it's so much that. I think it's more so that Ryushin's physique, to me, necessitates a deeper voice. I feel like it's such a bulky robot should have a more Optimus Prime-esque voice rather than a more than what they go for in the Japanese. I don't know. It just feels like the voice doesn't match the physique.
I can also tell with this that you're not really used to Star Wars side material.
Sure.
I think what it reminds me of is how Omega went from sounding deep and badass to generic high-pitched sounding robot in 06. Nobody liked that.
Yeah, that's an example as well. Like, give me Omega's voice in Shadow and Heroes over 06's any day, definitely.
Hey, fun fact in Shadow, he's voiced by Agent York.
Yeah.
It's
Like
really
how,
one of his few roles.
Yeah. Jeff Kramer is not exactly.
Superman in that Xbox exclusive game, but from what I heard,
Jeff Kramer is unfortunately not as prominent in the voice acting as he should, which is unfortunate because I love Jeff Kramer and I really wish he would be as prominent as some of the other VAs.
They got him back for the sequel, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Maybe it's just like, you know, maybe it's like he doesn't prefer to go as big. I don't know.
I will say, I've listened to some of the voice acting in Deadly Premonition too. It is kind of, I won't say weird, but it's interesting hearing Jeff Kramer and then all of a sudden hearing more regular voice acting.
Cassandra Morris as Patty is great. Like she does it, and she herself has said, as mentioned on Twitter, that she loved making the game.
Cassandra Morris playing a young, precocious, small character. Never seen that before.
Well, that too, yes. But like, and she herself even went on Twitter talking about how she loved the character and she loved doing the game.
Okay, remind me, just for the game, remind me this again. Did Tiara manage to open the door because she was a descendant of a Val God even in the other routes?
No, it's exclusive to this one. Which is weird because the Shukezu's Tower doesn't necessarily relate to the Val God, so I don't know how does that work.
Like you said, Pedro, it's the case where all the truncated towers were all part of the same network, and they were also connected to both deities. So it's not too out of the ordinary. It's just that again, the games mentioned these in what could be passing as throwaway.
This bit here. Okay, Teo, there's one particular difference from the other route here that actually ties up into what you talked about, how Flora and Glace are meant to be like idols. Check this out. Yeah. And so Al's of letter will actually be phrased differently this time. So check this out.
Okay. Since in this route she actually does her job as a scientist.
Yeah, just read.
Just read it. There you go.
Oh my god, they did actually become idols.
I mean, I guess it's one way to use the talent.
So does this mean that they
Well, I mean, he didn't
invented...
trick you into thinking he was good, so mission accomplished.
So does this mean that they invented idols?
Sure, why not?
What's next, VTubers?
Oh no.
Oh. You can make clones of them now!
Well, I guess the third one is from the evil goddess.
Wonder where he would have gotten DNA from the evil goddess. Did he just
Well,
walk up
again,
and take some of her hair?
his temporary alliance with Junown thanks to the wine. Remember, she did put his circulation around him. And Glace did swap the bottles that were destined to Bernard.
And yeah, for this one, I decided to pick Aaron just cause, not for any particular reason. There you go. At this point, it's the same. So let's skip this. Yeah, we already
skip it.
Skip it. Yeah, I'm just showcasing how. Yeah, as you can see, it's the exact same. And I looked it up. It's the exact same ending, same writing.
Yeah, even the same lights and everything.
So let's skip that.
I do find it weird because up until
all right. So after that, we have one more final thing. The new credits roll for this route. There you go.
All right. I find it weird that the romantic endings are the exact same, since everything else in the route, even if it's slightly, is different.
Everything that is side stuff, Jova, is the same in both routes. It's only the main story that changes.
Which, I mean,
Even the credit music is more somber.
Yeah, and as you can see, they even show the exact same CGs. Because again,
those are the only few they have.
and don't a lot of these CGs show up in side quests anyway?
No.
No, actually, some of them do too. Actually, some of them too.
Oh, okay, true. Like the festival one. My bad.
Yeah.
It's just that. Yeah. But it's most of them are tied to the story, like the bathhouse.
And there you go. Some production by the studio. Blah blah blah. Main theme by Nobuo Uematsu and his band, the Earthbound Papas.
I'll
Let me get my check. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh god, that's actually really sad. This is going to be one of Nobuo Uematsu's final contributions to...
No, remember...
Okay, to be fair, he still is technically going just
even aside from that, please remember, he's composing the main theme for each Final Fantasy XIV expansion. So at the very least,
he hasn't done that in a while, though.
Well, he's doing the one for Dawn Trail, which is coming out, in a few
Remind me
months.
too. Sorry.
By the time we're recording, it's gonna be publicized. It's already out, if I recall correctly.
Remind me too. Did he do the entirety of the soundtrack for Fantasian?
I don't know. I haven't checked.
Because
it was the Apple Arcade game that Mistwalker did, Jova.
Yeah,
it's structured like a set of diorama with paper, not with paper. It's pretty cute. Like I said, I even voted it as the best mobile game when it showed up at the Game Awards that year. Nice. Anyway, time to check what the quote-unquote alternate sequel hook is.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, look, butterflies.
Because it's a butterfly effect.
I wonder if that was the idea.
Alright, back to the scenario. New footsteps. Okay. One more thing.
Oh, the characters are actually there.
Al, you're not hosting a game conference. Oh, here's one more thing.
It's a game.
Please, have a look.
There's one more thing. Would you like to gamble?
Oh no, maybe the last one is the fractured. The fractured fury.
It's basically the same sequel hook. They just also mix up the test tube thingy.
Yeah, okay. What both of them seem to basically imply is the fact that again, the fractured fury can be actually used as an energy source or to give Fencer more power, which I guess ideally would be what. Could, power up in this inevitable war with these eldritch beings. Which, to be fair, it's a bit more something that would happen at the end of Advent Dark Force. It was just, at the end of it, just, we're gonna find a way.
And now I guess this might provide us the way. You see, there's a semi-evil goddess, or a very evil goddess, or a good goddess, or a good witch, or a bad witch, or the witch of the south, the witch of the north, the witch of the west.
Honestly, Jeremy, the series would actually be improved if there was a crossover with the Wizard of Oz. Is the Wizard of Oz in public domain?
At this point,
yes, but Warner Bros. Technically owns the distribution rights for the movies.
Oh yeah, but the books themselves are public domain.
Yes, sure.
Okay,
yes.
If I recall correctly, Warner Brothers strictly have legal ties on their take on the Wizard of Oz. But
just
that.
This guy actually wanted the wine factory destroyed?
Wait, and that one became a vessel for the evil god. What?
You know what?
Wait, hold on. Is he referring to the original take on Advent Dark Force, since he mentions Junown becoming a vessel of the evil goddess?
Yes. Supposedly this guy is somehow related to those two shadowy figures. The problem is, I'm not confident we're going to actually get a payoff for this, so I'm not going to let myself get invested.
Dialogue alone, what Joe is also guessing, and I suppose it seems to be the case where this particular sequel character is self-aware of the different timelines.
Yep.
Some capacity, kind of like a Chord in the Drakengard mythos.
I wonder if these hooded beings are all a bunch of multiverse leapers or whatnot. Like, again, he's apparently aware of what happened during the original game, and those other two people were hooded too. Again, so that technically means that this actually was a sequel to Advent Dark Force, because holy cow.
It's just that if you didn't actually, stick around until this very point, you might not know, I guess.
Yeah, that is an issue. Like, it's legit, like, at the last second where we...
And even then, like I said, it raises a couple more questions. Like, sure, I kind of want to know what's the deal with these people who seem to be aware of the different timelines, but like also Jova said, are we playing the long game in this case?
Like, shoot, does this mean that each game in Fairy Fencer F will have a different gameplay style or whatnot? Like,
and I have to ask again: are we actually going? If we do get a third game, is it going to take 8 years again? Because I'm not entirely sure I care to wait that long.
Look. And the thing is, if what it amounts to is payoff that, oh, you see, all the games were canon all along, I feel like there were better ways they could have gone to actually hint at it. Okay, sure, we do get that guy referring to Advent Dark Force. That being said, for all we know, he could just be talking about, like, Junown becoming the evil goddess off-screen if you really, 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 really want to stretch things, because it's just that vaguely put. Like, it's kind of like the equivalent of, say... Well, kind of how the MCU treated their Netflix shows at a time where the Netflix shows reference that, but they never truly felt canon until now, where they finally have been inducted properly into canon. It was more like, oh, we say they're in the same universe, but it never felt like it, per se, where that's kind of what this feels like. Lip service, which,
Yeah.
Okay, if you've got something going, by all means, but I can't say I'm holding my breath, and I'm the resident optimist.
Honestly, Jova, I'm starting to get a bit sick of so much lip service. Can we see some actual action, please?
Anyway, final thoughts in the meantime.
Twibs.
Well, I didn't hate it as much as the previous one.
Well,
That's something.
that's something, I guess.
I mean, it wasn't extremely annoying. It was only mildly annoying at points.
Yes.
So yeah, basically, to me, this game is basically take everything from the previous games and make them not as bad. I mean, it's still got some issues, like none of the characters are really all that. And we got new characters who are also not all that interesting, in spite of both the people playing them having a good set of pipes. I can't. Okay, aside from what I said earlier about sometimes some of the characters sound a bit older than they should, I can't really comment too much on the voice acting because I don't really understand Japanese. It is a shame that the people localizing this game cheaped out and didn't do an English dub.
Yeah, I can tell you, Dubs, that I've seen Fair Friends or fans who were genuinely disappointed because they really like the English cast.
Yeah. And unlike that, what was that spin-off of Neptunia that had a bunch of
Neptunia Virtual Stars.
Yeah, they had a bunch of VTubers on there.
Yeah, but that made sense. Yeah, that made sense.
Less of an excuse.
Yeah, that one made sense.
Less of an excuse than that one.
Yeah.
The gameplay, well, what little gameplay there is. It's just basically, it's not even really changed that much from the looks of it. It's just basically, it's just the battle system now. Like, it's basically a visual novel with some gameplay. Like, although I swear at times it feels like you do more in. I think even by this point, I think the previous Ace Attorney game that came out before this game felt like that had more gameplay in it than this.
Well, this Eternity series is meant to be an adventure / point-and-click type game, like where you saw.
So
It's more about
you actually do stuff more than just
Yeah.
extra advanced dialogue.
The real issue is the lack of dungeons. That's the real problem, because there's nothing but combat in here. And the combat is fine, but not enough to carry a 60-hour game.
I've not come across any. I've not come across any game that is just basically nothing but combat that can hold up the whole. Anything else I can mention?
The music?
It's fine. I mean, they don't overuse the trumpet theme as much as they did last time.
Mm-hmm. And like you yourself said, Yui Ishikawa has a wonderful voice. So there's that.
Yeah. That's really about it. It's about basically Fairy Fencer F. It's like the other games, but it doesn't quite make me want to tear my ears off. The worst, it just makes you want to cover them for it.
All right. You done?
Yep.
Okay, Jova, go ahead.
This is one of the weirdest follow-ups to a series I have ever seen. Like, and mind you, the series is just starting off. Well, technically, I started off. If by starting off, I mean it has had an original game, gotten a remake, and then this is like, you know, the first actual proper. Well, yeah, I guess it is a sequel now, going off of that last after credits bit. It's just baffling. The gameplay is completely different. The story essentially is a set back version of the original plot with the characters. The twist is just that everyone that you know and love lives for the most part. Even the bad guys, too, except for Hanagata and the first, second, you know, the lesser route.
Well, here's the thing, Joe. But we don't even know what happened to Anagata. He just disappeared. That's the thing.
No, they did mention that it was under the mind.
We
did mention it was under mind control of Junown, as we know about it. So
okay,
it's safe to assume that he got freed along with everyone else.
I guess.
I was referring more so to the "we're doing fine" route, where I believe he actually does. Varkov 50, he absolutely does die in that route, but no, in the "we're not doing so well," or I guess we could call it the Junown route, essentially. Last we hear is, yeah, he's mind wiped, but was he removed from power? Since Bernard does talk about reforming Dorfa, so is he dead? Was he deposed? Like, at least for as slapdash as it was in the other routes in this game and the other games, at least we knew what became of him by the end. Yeah, it usually involved him dying, but this was just nothing. But, you know, that's small potatoes, which is kind of sad, given how he is, in a sense, supposed to be the President Shinra of this game's verse, but I digress. What about the main meat of the story itself here? I'll give it credit. There are things I enjoy better in this game than in the original game. A lot of the characters don't get as insufferable as they are. Heck, some actually do get better development. This is also helped probably by the fact that nobody dies, so they are allowed to have better character development in here and there. And yeah, I know, to be fair, technically, the main party survived in the original Goddess route, albeit we didn't have the full expansive route at that time, which we do now in this game, which, yeah, I guess is pretty neat. So, yeah, there are things that are better. But I can't say that the story overall is better than that of Advent Dark Force, because it doesn't have as low a low as Dark Force, but it doesn't have the highs of Dark Force either, sadly, in the sense that Advent Dark Force, while it was an absolute train wreck of a story, definitely elicited more emotions, I feel, from the viewer base. Definitely helped me care a lot more. And it also helped that, you know, I'll give it credit, the routes felt like truly different time routes, whereas this feels like, oh, here's an alternate universe where basically, you just happen to do everything slightly to the left. Now, to give it credit, the routes were more different than what I was expecting, and I definitely do think that the second route we looked at is the definitive one writing-wise, essentially. Especially since that one also seems to hint more at what could potentially be the big threat of, I guess, the Fairy Fencer F universe. I guess also one problem in this game, saying that Advent Dark Force did better, is that this game unfortunately draws attention to the lack of world building, whereas I feel like Advent Dark Force at least explained some aspects better or didn't draw unnecessary attention to aspects as much as this game does, including also what time date this is and what or what is not applicable technology for the time being. And, yeah, sometimes the pacing on the skits can be long. Now, I, for the most part, was able to tolerate them, but I'll admit there were some that dragged out their jokes a little too much, sadly. On the plus side, there were some skits that were absolutely good, and holy cow, the Dojin arc, with Mariana slowly becoming a degenerate but believing in it, and Mariana coming to terms with the fact that her Goldykins has truly found potentially two men to share his life with was... I mean, it was just the right level of crack that I can say that was genuinely an entertaining read of arc overall.
I also really like...
It does go off of misunderstanding tropes.
I'll argue another highlight was Lola and TR discussing in how many ways you can merchandise Pip, and that was pretty amusing to me.
Admittedly, Lola in general is a highlight of this franchise at this point. But,
And guess
yeah.
and look at one particular improvement that this game has over Advent of Wars. They didn't have a terrible bit in the Evil God, like in the Evil Goddess route, where they wrecked her character. So I'm thankful for that, at least.
Let's see what else. Yeah, the two routes more or less are similar, but what comes into play that really gives me the edge for this latter route is, A, more agency of particular characters. Fleur actually feels more like her own character who gets to call some shots here. Fang, while he does still have his heroic moments, feels somewhat better directed in this route here. Glace even finally gets to actually, have a proper arc in breaking free of Al's control and everything, and hell, even Al doesn't feel as much like a Saturday morning cartoon villain who's just laughing maniacally half the time. Oh, he has his maniacal moments still, sure, but he feels much more in moderation here, which definitely helps me take him more seriously as well. Also, while it does feel like he gets off a bit scot-free, I feel like I'm more okay with it in this route, if only because in this version he is clearly much more remorseful of the fact that he has to absolutely hurt Fleur and Glace despite him denying that. Whereas in the other route, he showed no remorse whatsoever. Again, it really feels like the first route we did is a Saturday morning cartoon version of this more serious plot overall. And, for what she did, Junown was kind of interesting until she just leaves the plot. Yeah. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. Again, maybe they're saving this version of Junown for whatever that big bash with the alternative gods that she's hinting at is, but I feel like at the very least arresting her would have at least put a stop to her, but I guess she's truly defeated. Ooh. Now, going back to, sadly, the reason I would take Advent Dark Force over this, the downgrades. Mostly, notably, the budget. Holy cow, I didn't think it would be possible to make Advent Dark Force look masterful in its production by comparison, but by Jove, they did it. They somehow animated less than in Advent Dark Force. There are less CG arts than in Dark Force. There is less cutscene progression than in Dark Force. What the hell happened with this game? Like, if you didn't feel like you had enough faith to make a sequel, why even make a sequel? Which, again, from what I recall, doesn't even really include the original team from Fairy Fencer F, so... Was this comp a heart trying to make another quick buck off of Fairy Fencer F? Was this a request made from Naoko or something, not to see her other child die?
Well, Naoko was not even credited in this game at all, so I don't even...
Well, that's why I'm wondering if, like, it was just a request she made and that was pretty much it, because we do know that, at least when the first game came out, or heck, by the time of Advent Dark Force, it definitely felt like they wanted Fairy Fencer Up to be able to take Neptunia's place as more or less the mascot series,
No.
or at the very least the moneymaker.
They had to wait till Death End Request. That's the one that seemingly took over now.
Wait, Death End Request?
Death End Request is right now well, for all intents and purposes, their primary franchise, because Neptunia we're still waiting for that 5th mainline game. So yeah,
Like you said, they also finished recently Mary's Skelter.
Oh yeah,
also a big run.
that is true. Mary's Culture, yeah.
So yeah, nowadays they don't have to rely as heavily on Neptunia. It really makes you wonder, could they possibly have really succeeded with Advent Dark Force if they, well, for starters, had a better idea what they were doing, and 2, had a better budget? Especially since, okay, I do wonder if the devs were legit, cut down to their last dime, and this was the best they could do with it. Because it does not make sense for them to kneecap themselves this much that I really do have to wonder if this is strictly just about the publisher pretty much tightened their purse strings to the point where this was all they could do. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the lowered budget might have been the reason for the gameplay style change, since they probably didn't have enough money to make overworlds. I know some might argue that, they could have just reused the assets, but okay, if they were literally just reusing the same dungeons over again, at that point, it really should have just been DLC. Because, I mean, say what you will about Sonic games and their nostalgia stuff, but it's not like they literally put the exact same levels with the same level design. Like, I guess unless they made the same dungeons, but added it that here's this other new location.
You say that, Jova, but the level design of the classic levels in Generations for DS is literally copy-pasted from the classic games. So that game did that.
Well, okay, to be fair, Generations had the excuse that it's time travel and, we're literally going back to those things. But even still, it had differences in the asset and makeup of it. Like, it spruced it up. It changed it. It made it high definition. Like, this is like, imagine if just the rendering, everything was the same.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Again, I think it just comes down to the fact that the most frustrating thing about Refrain Chord for me is how noticeably cheap it is. And yes, I know, comp à heart games are not often, high scale and high grade, but this feels so cheap that, like we mentioned, it affects the storytelling or them being able to convey certain things. Granted, if I recall correctly, we did have a bit of a complaint about the lack of sprite actions in Advent Dark Force, but not to the extent in Refrain Chord. Holy cow.
Let's not forget how there's literally moments in this game where the game shows nothing but a fucking black screen and nothing else.
Yeah. Like, for as much as I preferred the second route we did, the first route definitely did flashbacks better than that. Which is weird, because they're in the same game.
Much like Jova, I also would love what happened of this game. The problem is, this game is way too obscure for Matt to even... I seriously doubt Matt even knows this franchise exists, so...
Like, this game is so obscure that, like I mentioned, not even much of the Fairy Fencer fan base has covered this, from what I've seen anyway.
Some of them did, but yeah, not many, no.
They also seem to go for more stuff that will, work for not clickbait necessarily, but that will net more views.
More demand, stuff that has more demand, yeah.
I've seen him go for some more obscure stuff, but definitely nothing as obscure as... Wow! Okay, he did do that Heroes and Trails of Cold Steel Skies game.
That's really not obscure, Jova. At this point, the stuff from Neon Falcom is relatively well known.
Legacy of Heroes is starting to become popular, yeah.
You can make an argument, Jova, that this series about the worst fighting game is covering more obscure titles.
fair enough. Like, who knows? Maybe if they'll do an equivalent to that for RPGs or whatever we're counting Refrain Chord as, an RPG, tabletop
RPG.
strategy. Yeah, okay. And speaking of which, I will give it credit. The gameplay is interesting, especially with the new mechanics they throw in with the Flaring Glace's music mechanics and all that. That is good stuff. Like Advent Dark Force, they do know how to make a good battle system. Sadly, that one good battle system is not enough to save the game, especially since, well, fights do, unfortunately, still get old in some way, shape, or form. And it feels like the game may not be the most well explained at times as well. But I digress. I guess to give it a positive, I did enjoy the music overall. And yes, even the trumpet theme is still good, it's just used terribly. That being said, it is still nowhere near the most interesting video game soundtrack I have heard, so yes, you made a good video game soundtrack, but it's not like I'm going to be having this on my most played playlist or anything.
Kenji Kaneko definitely not giving Masahiro Shisoken any run for his money. Not at all.
I'll give Nobuo Matsu credit. He still clearly has got it, though, because he did write gold for this game.
Well, he wrote the title screen theme, and to be honest, I mean, no disrespect to Matsu, I love the guy who doesn't write, but honestly, his work for this series sounds so bland compared to his other work in better things that it's just, like Teo joked earlier, I genuinely believe that these games to him were nothing more than just an easy paycheck, to be honest with you.
I guess when I say it's gold, it feels like gold compared to most other stuff in the game, which... Yeah, admittedly...
Go on, sorry. No, go on.
No, go on.
No, I can say this doing my thoughts.
Again, maybe that's just my perspective being a bit skewed with this game, essentially. It's just, again, I went in wanting to like this, because admittedly the game did start off with an interesting change in format, even if I would have still preferred an actual sequel to Dark Force, but again, we've already talked about that to good length. But the way the game starts is interesting, honestly, with how it changes stuff up, and while it doesn't stick forever, I can at least now understand in hindsight that this was part of Albert's plans and all that. And some of the stuff, and a lot, they do interesting things. The thing is, and this is something it does share in common with Advent Dark Force, even when there are great, amazing story beats in this game, you have to consider the overarching narrative that's connecting them all is a mess. Like, for every good scene that there is, it feels like there can be a bad scene just waiting to ambush you and everything. And even when there is a good train of stuff here, it's not enough for me to recommend buying the game over, especially in this day and age where you can just YouTube the story anyway. But again, I digress. Let's assume you bought and are playing this game. You know, the sad thing is, even if you're a big Fairy Fencer F fan, I don't know if I can recommend this outside of you may get the full story for what's coming. God, can you imagine if that becomes this game's best selling point? Do you want to understand what happens in Fairy Fencer F's equivalent of Endgame? Well, you need to play both Advent Dark Force and Refrain Chord.
I get the feeling, even on the hypothetical that we do get a third game, I get the feeling this is starting to become one of those, bad toxic relationships where it's just like, no, they're going to resolve everything the next time. No, definitely, they are. And then they keep not resolving it. Like, no, I assure you, they're going to resolve it this time. Wait till the next game. They're going to resolve everything beautifully. And it's just like, they never do.
They'll resolve it by the time we're all commentating from our retirement homes.
Yeah, basically.
They finally completed it.
And by this point, I'm the only one who cares.
What a way to die. But yeah, no. Refrain Chord. I would highly suggest that you might want to refrain from buying it at full price. Get it at a sale.
Very funny.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I did. I got it from a sale as well. Go on, Teo.
Okay, I will use this time to give a rather, abridged, proper type of final thoughts rather than Dark Force, because the one that I gave me finished the game was not exactly the best,
Sure.
Just to mention quickly, because we also stuff that I didn't mention during this run, the game was a mess. The wrong that I genuinely liked was taking the goddess route, and even then, it still had way too many problems. In general. What I was getting, what the team was trying to be in terms of both trying to balance comedy and a serious, type of RPG story, was too trying to get both sides of the coin, and basically landed on its head when you really get down to it. The gameplay was okay, nothing more, nothing less. The voice acting was fine for the most part, and the art style, at least to me, was actually fine compared to what the rest of you said. The other two routes that were added for the Advent Dark Force expansions were technically okay, interesting in theories, but they had way too many problems for their own good. Either killing off unceremoniously characters that didn't need to, or horribly ruining characters that also had were technically not guilty of that, particularly Lola, like we mentioned. And unfortunately, Noe was not particularly, super interesting as a new addition back then. The music was technically fine, but there was also the overuse of the trumpet theme. And I'm pretty sure that covers most of that, because again, the other stuff is what I said here or there, just not in the final thoughts. As for this game, it's kind of hard to judge, if I have to be honest, because, okay, let's start with the more obvious things, why not? First of all, the price tag. Either ignore it, pirate the game, especially if you're, on PC, you can easily do that if you don't want to, give money to the company or don't want to even gonna get it for a sale.
Allow me to. Steam keys at this point are like $6, $8, so you can easily get those.
My point is, the more bullshit a company gives, the more the players will always try to find a way to subvert them.
Yeah.
Always, rather than just, be angry just at them, be on the lookout of a solution to the problem. So technically there's also that. The gameplay. It's interesting, but it's also too oversimplistic. As someone who's a veteran of tactical RPGs, this is only what an alpha prototype would look like. Not in the sense that it's buggy, but it's way too simple. The position of the player on the chessboard, the lack of special conditions aside of very specific moments, the overly used gimmick that creates an empty plot hole, as in the fact that both sides need to have a song stress, present all the time, which has to create the shadow clones of Glace, and have to her be present also for the final boss fight, where thematically she should not be present. Thankfully, this round that we just covered, covers that apparently, So that's also a problem. Also, as Pedro said, technically the lack of dungeons. Not just that, I would also like to add the lack of consecutive fights. The game is way too generous in finishing a segment, then booting you back to the war map, and then moving on to waiting until you can move to the next one. And this creates a pacing problem, basically, because I understand that sometimes they can be dickish, but segments with multiple fights in a row are there to pose a specific type of challenge to test the player if they're actually ready under certain conditions, and they also serve to provide the important story elements without having to break the pace, which is unfortunately this game does exactly that, and it is kind of a problem. And again, it almost feels like the gameplay was the least, care thing about it. And considering it's lifted off from another title, it probably was. It was just a case where they slapped the models, especially because we don't fight characters that are in human form, or even that they had a fairy form, unless specific cases like Bernard. We don't fight Pag, and we don't fight Zenke. We don't fight, Junown. Hell, we don't even fight technically the incarnations of a vile god and the evil goddess, when they easily could have recycled the models and find a bullshit story justification to have them present. This was deliberate, technically.
Yeah.
So no, like I said, the gameplay is possibly the least, the weakest part of this whole thing, which is kind of a problem because if you haven't noticed, I know that the last couple of parts have been being re-indicator, but this is supposed to still be a game after all,
Yeah.
But and even as a, if it was just a visual novel, I would complain about the lack of choice, and it really feels like a glorified cutscene compilation that you can just see on YouTube at that point. Or, like I said, pirate, if you just want to have the thrill of pressing yourself a button to progress. Well, like I said, it has been my complaint towards the story mode option for the recent Ace Attorney games. I'm like, if you really want to have that, you can easily just watch the game on YouTube. You don't want to spend money for that, technically. But the point back to this. So that leads me to talk about telling also the music. The few new tracks that they have that are perfectly fine, and the score is technically still being used, but it's based in a better way. John was mentioning the other part a few parts ago that he thinks not all the themes that were used were particularly adapted to the moment, but then I kind of disagree. In this case, it's technically much more better. Again, the lack of overusing of a trumpet theme is actually, for the best. That's a starter for a change, But even in general, again, if anything, it made me appreciate a bit more the score of Advent Dark Force as a result, by proxy, because some of the tracks really are good. They do remind me of Keiichi Okabe's work for Nier, technically. So, and I really love that score, so the score is doing something right, and the presence in here makes it, elevates a bit more what the writing actually provide.
It's like I said, the problem was that, in Advent Dark Force, they were misused a lot, whereas while they are somewhat misused here, they're a lot better used in their proper scenarios. So
whoever did the mixing did a better job. It's not perfect because, as we mentioned, the skits and the first drop that we covered, the more light-hearted one, still do use the trumpet theme a bit too liberally for its own good. Anyway, that leaves me having to talk about technically the story and the characters. Okay, as for our returning characters, where do I even start? Technically speaking, let me put it on a general way. For the returning characters, I'm technically on a net positive overall. They're still not perfect, and in some cases they do find a couple of new flaws to actually put there. But I'm actually more, okay with them by the end of the game, which is already a plus compared to Advent Dark Force, any of the three routes. The fact that none of them technically, the main replayable character, mind you, the fact that none of them actually die in this route is already a big plus over anything from Advent Dark Force, because I get it about providing stakes and everything, but like I said, it left such a sour taste in my mouth, and for all her problems that she has, for example, if the solution, for example, for Harley behavior was to kill her off, even whatever it was with a good reason or just unceremoniously, it would have still left a sour taste in my mouth regardless. So, at the very least, they tried to not go there. That being said, there are still flaws scattered throughout. There's that very initial beat with Fang and Erin, where Fang berates her and physically, abuses her just because of the whole, servant master mechanic, which is just horrible and out of place. And even if you take it for account that it's supposed to take place in the middle of the story from any of the rounds around the Dark Force, it just feels odd, and it's never mentioned or went on from there again. Fang and Erin act much more normally, almost from the next cutscene onward. unless you want to tell me that the brainwashing from Glace was what triggered that kind of change. But
Yes. And most of Final Fantasy VIII is Squall still in the dream, of course.
I mean, I'm still running on my head canon that the characters did die at the end.
Well, I'm going off of the whole he's dreaming after...
The thing after the end of disc one. He's talking about the end of disc one.
My point, Joe, is that, you can joke about fan theories, but I still do have mine.
Oh, sure.
No, look, I am A-okay with theories. It's just... The Squall being dead after disc 1 thing is one I have never really bought, and a lot of people have documented
anyway,
it doesn't work.
To continue, again, that initial bit aside, Fang and Arian are technically fine in this game. The worst that I can say was one of the initial skits about the panties. And even then, I did not find it as rancid as maybe in the other skits or situations for the Dark Force. It's still a bit iffy, but not as much at the very least. And even then, it continues to improve. And with the Junown route, I just call it that, like Jova said, we even get improvement by having several minor arcs about how Fang and Erin have to, learn again how to stay connected, because for one reason or another, first emotionally, then physically, they keep getting separated, and as a result, understand, how they actually cared about each other. It's technically a better job to try to, giving cohesive, friendship and potential love interest between these two. It's just that, as Pedro also noted, a couple of these tend to, well, most of these, because it's a recurring thing when it comes to the situation of the story, tend to happen in only, 1 or 2 chapters tops. It introduces the situation and it resolves almost immediately after, as a result. Probably because, they want to have the playable character associated to that, or they want to move to the next plot point as a result. Which, like he said, the problem of the game, of the pace of the game, is noticeable, and it is also another factor onto that. So at the very least, Fang and Erin are technically fine aside from the very beginning. I will give them that. Who's that? Tiara feels like really she has actually technically less going on for this game. I do believe she has something better in the second round. It's a bit better, and if I recall correctly, in this one she doesn't get pointlessly kidnapped by Al, like I said, like in a Silver Age comic book.
Yeah.
So, the first round we did really does feel like a Saturday
I will get to that,
cartoon.
Jova, don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, both her and Huey otherwise don't have as much as to do in the plot as in Advent Dark Force. It's just that, I think there's nothing particularly wrong with what she does, aside from being kidnapped in the first round again. Harley and Baus. Oh my god. Okay. Let's put it also through let's recognize the fact that Harley is technically better by default by not having dedicated splash image about her gagable molestation, neither about her stripping off, by the way. It is present, but it doesn't even get a CGI. Mind you, this could always be the game, just not have enough budget for, we could have had those. Again, just a question mark, but I personally want to believe that maybe it wasn't the case, and I have good reason for that, because in the Junown route, she actually drops the act and takes the situation seriously. We finally get to see what the character's potential actually is like. Unfortunately, whatever round you pick, you still have to deal with the skits, where she still does act occasionally this out of character, but this was part of her quirk. She has that particular quirk. So it is kind of like an iron ball chained to her ankle, nonetheless, I
do love the irony that she was like the only female character not getting in on the degenerate Dojin business, though. Which
Teo noted that too when we were doing it. Yeah.
Bauhaus is technically better in this than in Advent Dark Force, because not only his cooking thing is explored a bit as there's the bit of rivalry with AJ, but there's also, for example, that particular skit where he teaches the younglings about cooking, and even if he doesn't like it at the beginning, it is a good time nonetheless. It is nice. Sherman and Ryushin. Sherman is okay, technically. Yes, we still like the fact that he's turned to villain, and he's inferred by the fact that he gets, freed from his evil intention thanks to the experience that he has at the beginning of the mind control. But I agree with Pedro, maybe one skill or two extra where, this was elaborated, maybe saying, oh, what monster would I have become if I succumbed to my dark desires or stuff like that. Rewishing has technically less to do in this game, unfortunately, but like I said, technically just fine. Nothing that they gave him wrong things to do or a particular bad perk, Apollonius and his fairy, I forgot his name, the dragon.
Seguro.
Seguro, thank you. The Apollonius is given technically a bit less to do, and is introduced with a bit of a wrong foot, as in having the chivalrous stone having the mistake of crashing in on the bathhouse scene, unfortunately. But I did not think it was that problematic. I've seen enough of this type of joke, and I always get the idea that the West tend to be having a bit of a problem with these. Sometimes more than it's necessary, but like I said, when it came specifically to this and Apollonius, I think it was technically fine. It doesn't have too much to do otherwise, but he still talks about stuff in tied to his sister, even if we don't see her. So technically, he has something to do nonetheless. And like I said, he's still solid of his characterization about honor, training, the good and the bad when it comes to that. So there is that. Pippin and Sojin pretty much are the same as in Advent Dark Force, minus the extra character arc that the presence of Papin had. That is technically a detriment, like Pedro said. I'm more okay with the fact that at least gaming provides a bit of an excuse of why Papin is not there, rather than pretending he never existed. But it's still very weird, and like I said, deliberate, because they add the
side quest,
the character design. That's what I mean.
The sprite and the model, they can reuse it, so it'll be very easy to implement.
The only thing that makes me wonder if his Japanese voice actor passed away in the meantime, and maybe that's the reason the character is not present. But I actually don't know about that, if that is true or not. And to be fair, Junown was recast.
Yeah, if they could recast Junown, why not recast Papin as well?
And no disrespect to Papin's VA, but Papin wasn't the biggest role. Like, from what I noticed, it's usually like the big lead roles that, Japan studios seem to be adamant about keeping. And even still, sometimes they will recast them still. But anyway, Papin was like...
Just to continue, Sojin is actually better than in Advent Dark Force. He has a lot more stuff to do. His jokes are not, his shtick is not just, oh, he's the butler kind of character, or, oh, he has to basically be the straight man to Pippin's extravaganza. No, not really. He has more stuff to do, more interactions, and sometimes more personal stuff that he does. So I like that. Who's next? Well, yeah, okay, sure. Lola is okay in this. I argue she has less stuff to do in here than in Advent Dark Force. And in the first route that we covered, the non-Junown route, she's almost an afterthought. She really is the 6-star ranger through and through, and I don't understand why. Like,
I feel like Lola was kind of a 6 ranger even in Dark Force, seeing as how
not as she was much. Like, holy shit.
Well, she was like the optional team member.
Optional, yes, but you could get the opportunity to actually recruit her still came in relatively early, enough to actually enjoy the character. No, I technically was the 6-star ranger in that in Advent Dark Force, technically. I'll get to him in a second. But also, just to mention, Marianna, and consequently Zagi and also her fairy do have a lot more stuff to do in this game. Fortunately, part of that involves the stupid gag about her being considered old, which, like I said, the gag itself is not super stupid, in my opinion, but it just doesn't fit the character design. I'm sorry. The Zagi is the surprise dark horse of the game. Someone really cared about him during development. They made, more story arc and everything for him. I kind of wish he became playable in some kind of manner as a result, but at the very least, the story provides to build something for him. And also Mariana's Fairy, that tends to have something to do, like with the Dojin, arc. I don't, just to mention quickly, why I don't have any problem with it, I don't particularly care, honestly, about it. It's just there. So I do remember laughing a bit of some other skits than that. But like I said, it's technically fine. Noe. Noe is actually better than in Advent Dark Force. I know that it doesn't really take much, and woe us, we lose the dedicated ending that we had with him in the Advent Dark Force, alas. But look, even if the whole thing about wanting to become a bug might feel, redundant, like I said, I think I did mention when we covered Advent Dark Force capacity, I still get where he's coming from to some degree. And the juxtaposition of a cowboy appearance and the Shadow the Hedgehog-esque personality combined with the desire of reincarnation, that's not too bad of an idea. Sometimes, unfortunately, we do just keep hammering on the same plot point, unfortunately for him. But in this game, we're doing things better. He's more involved a bit, particularly in the Junown round, of course. He's more willing to explain things, to have a mind on his own, to, willingly betray Junown for his own reasons. There's technically thought pouring into the character, and again, I appreciate that. Ethel and her own fairy. Ethel technically Karin. Ethel has technically less to do, unfortunately, in this game. I don't think it's super much of a problem, and like I said, I think she relates a bit to Ifrit, sure, and we had a couple of other skits to let her do something. Sure, there isn't potentially the same big emotional, resonance that she had in Advent Dark Force, but I can live without that, especially because they don't, juxtapose that by ruining technically her character. Sure, she doesn't have the same thing to do, but at the same time, she's perfectly fine and solid and has something else to do, just not on the same magnitude, I suppose. And her fairy also, Karin, tends to, do stuff a bit more, I argue, because I do remember a couple of the skits also gives her something more varied to do, aside also from the Dojin stuff, obviously. I think that leaves also the new playable characters.
What about Galdo?
Oh, sorry. Galdo is technically better on his own too. The fact that he doesn't get trashed in a coma for most of the game is an improvement. And also less raunchy jokes. There are still these skits of in order to cement his bromance with Fang, they have the recurring gag of them reading Playboy, which it's a bit hit and miss, but not in a sense of problematic. Just sometimes it's just not funny, But and it didn't particularly maybe care about it. Otherwise, he's perfectly fine. And sometimes he gets to have a bit of a moment to shine, like pointing something that the others do not, And he's a bit of a simpleton type of attitude because Country Bumpkin and stuff does come in help when it comes to analyze the situation. So, like I said, he's fine. He's very technically not so much because she has a bit less to do. Granted, in Advent Dark Force, she also did not have much stuff to do, but in here, she's mostly there. She's there for emotional support for anything because mother figure to Galdo or anything. So, fortunately. As for the new characters, the thing that I mentioned for the entire game has to be applied here. I partially agree with Pedro in the sense that while I do appreciate technically overall these new characters personally, I would have been equally fine if in their place we did got playable Paiga and Zenke as a result.
That would have been cool, yeah.
Not necessarily just cool, also payoff and allowing also the characters to, to technically do something. That being said, I don't think that the new characters presented technically are that unsavageable or, they really do something bad with them. Rinne has a bit of a, tragic backstory, something, attached to her. And being the youngest party member, technically has to learn a lot of things, doesn't know how to behave. And as a result, all of the interactions are interesting because she's just a child and has to learn things on how she relates to also the other party member, you know. And AJ. Like I said, I'm not the qualified person to talk about AJ. Hopefully, Shiri might be able to tell something, who knows. But for the way AJ is presented in the game, I'm fine. I don't know if it was a case of the original script or the localization, a combination of them. Maybe it's a bit and bit, I don't know. But I did like AJ overall. The beginning of the Junown round left me a bit of a... not so sure with their behavior, but otherwise the character is fine, especially in the skit. The great thing about AJ is the fact that they seem to notice what the other character's personality tend to be, bounce of them pretty well, and also point out correctly, for example, character flaws. AJ is one of the few people who actively tries to tell,
Harley off.
Harley to knock it off. Yes. Just for an example, the only thing that's left sour is that stupid side quest about the gender discriminating wall, which, like I said, it is a can of worms that really should have not been present to begin with, and I really wish was not present in the game because it creates a bunch of problems that are just horrible no matter where you look at them. Like maybe as a cheap gag in 2005 would have been fine, and not necessarily fine, but maybe more resonated more with the audience at the time. But these days, no, it needed to be elaborated a bit better. I'm sorry.
It definitely felt one of those anime got an anime sort of bouts there.
That's more just stereotyping. No, again, it's just the type of humor for these writers more than anything.
I mean, look, I'm not going to say all anime does it, but it is a noticeable trope that you do see in anime, noticeably.
Anyway, Ibfrit. I technically don't mind Ibfrit. He's a bit of a one-trick pony, but I didn't really mind him for the arc that he had about Zagi. With Zagi, sure, the pacing, the problem of the pacing, prevents him from shining the most or giving a bit of or getting from point A to point B in a more diluted manner. Again, what Pedro said, things happen a bit too quick for their own good. But I still do like what the type of character arc he goes through. In Sperry, unfortunately, what it doesn't, irritates me as much as Pedro's. I kind of have to agree that he's a bit anonymous. The skit allowed, the snake to do more stuff, or Ibfrit understanding what Seth Berry is saying, but otherwise there is not much. Technically speaking, I care less about Huey when you really get down to it, but Huey does have a bit more of a presence in the plot, so it's a balancing kind of thing. Fleur is the big star, central star of his game, and I'm okay with her, technically. Like I said, I know, thanks to experiences like Fullmetal Alchemy is more what, an homunculus tends to be, but even so, what pop culture has assimilated when it comes to the studies of alchemy and, all that it's attached to it, So I already kind of knew what I was getting into, both over and now, I kind of wish there was sort of a gameplay evolution of her. The more she got better, in the game, understanding her emotions and everything, the more like type of songs or different effects or special attacks you gain rather than being attached to the levels. That probably would have felt a bit more cathartic, but alas. And like I said, the gimmick of the songstress is not that bad, honestly. And it integrates with the tactical RPG. It just needed to be elaborated more. Glace, unfortunately, has the almost polar opposite problem. She's a bit better and cool on paper, especially when it comes to the gameplay, but in practice actually doesn't do that much on the gameplay. Like we mentioned, she just casually buffs an ally and then tries to activate her song. Unless she gets better in harder difficulties, I don't know about that. But otherwise, her presence in the plot is a bit all over the place. At the end of the day, I don't mind what they did with her, but it could have been also so much better. And as the villain, I have to admit, the way if I didn't knew anything before the very end of the game, I really wouldn't have minded all as this villain, as in I would have considered him the better of the ones we got, because what are the alternatives? Sherman going crazy, Mariana going crazy, Junown, well, not going crazy, but being present. That's kind of it. At the very least, I'll feel something with a more elaborated arc. First of all, it provides even more lore than we had, something that in this particular arc gets also overimposed even over the evil goddess, so takes a bit of a priority over everything. We get to know more about what the ancient civilization supposedly was, with him. And his threat feels a bit more big because it's a threat to literally everything, including also the evil goddess when you get down to it, to the point where, his operation manages to even upstage Junown at the end of the day. But man, I kind of wish he did got what he deserved at the end. I have to agree. Him just getting the Steven Universe treatment is just a disservice to storytelling. I'm sorry. I don't care. Like, a villain that does the things that Al did does not get away with a pat on the back and a time travel back to the past. Come the fuck on. No.
It's not even just that he gets away with it. It's that in the first round, he clearly wasn't even feeling remorse. I'm more okay with it in the second round, if only because
otherwise, we will. I think we already did compare with him. I want to make also a comparison with Krelian from Xenogears because he goes through something similar to that. I would like to give the basic difference. Al gets beaten up, and it's thanks to the heroes showing mercy that he gets away. Krelian is so actually smart that he managed to outsmart anyone and comes into a position of not being able to be reached,
Yeah.
So at the very least, Krelian earned that in some capacity. Al, no. He got beaten fair and square. He deserved to die. And even if you want to go for the route of Fang still being noble and everything, do the thing that I suggested that Kuvira should have got in Book 4 of Korra. Have Al still being hubris on his own, or even if he repents, but the machine that he's currently attached to overloads and kills him in the process. A victim of his own hubris, his action are his own demise because the consequences of those, it's perfectly a close circle to what his character arc is, and technically leaves our main heroes without their hands stained of blood. It's just that simple, but they don't even do that.
I wonder if they're going to have Al coming clutches. The main hero who's doing all this research, again, assuming that this all ends eventually in a big
like he said, I like the character of Al, but I'm the first to say that he should have died at the end in some capacity. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Especially with what we said, the experimentation on children, which leads me to talk about the stories and the ending for the last bit. Okay. I'm still running on the idea that the Junown route was the first to be written because, I'm sorry, it has more detail, it's the more kind of logical, it drops most of the humor, and it really feels like it had more dedicated effort poured into it, while instead the other route feels really like it was done during spare time and where most of the, the throwaway lines and jokes were put into that. Yes, you guys mentioned about the flashbacks, but I do argue that we get the same type of backstory in the Junown route, just without something happening on screen. And even then, as you guys yourself mentioned, what happens on screen is not really that much. So having a black screen, I'm sorry, it really doesn't change that much when you get down to it. Things. So what's important is what's written in the text boxes. And honestly, like you said, we get the same type of backstory anyway, and motivation. But again, this Junown route is so much better. And because of this, I'm actually tend to incline with, despite the problems that I just, mentioned for some of the characters and some of the skits, by default, this is the best route of all the ones of the game, including Advent Dark Force. Sure, doesn't justify the $60 price tag for the game anyway, but and it does require knowledge of Advent Dark Force. But if you're someone who cares about these characters and this type of story, yes, this is easily the best conclusion that you get, even if it ends with a sour note if you care about catharsis. But it's still a better way, a better, more enjoyable, fun way to actually, get to have a satisfying conclusion than having, most of your party dead. And or comatose or treated horribly. Hell, like you said, the fact that Harley drops the molestation jokes is already a big plus for this. But the upper round is just almost unsalvageable. I'm sorry. And like you said, aside from a few exceptions, these kits are mid to bad. There are moments that do stand out. But a lot of them do really just doesn't feel like a lot of thought went into them, and a lot of humor is just not really good. So yeah, that's kind of it. At the end of the day, it is a mess, but I still will take technically this as a continuation of the franchise over any of the other rounds in Advent Dark Force. Different cliffhangers be damned. Whatever is if we ever get a continuation, I hope that it's based around this at the very least, because at the very least it feels like a better place from which to continue than at the end of the Evil Goddess route. And sure, I kind of get it about preferring a sequel to the original, which is unfortunately a problem. But judging the product as it's given to me, like I said, I technically prefer these over the two previous iterations of the games. It's just that, like I said, it would have felt so much better without the comic reading route and sold for $20-25, price tag DLC for Advent Dark Force as an extra route. Honestly, it really would have made much sense, and probably would have the gameplay of Advent Dark Force put into this would have helped. So it's a mixed bag, but overall, I'm still having for as little as it is, a positive result at the end. Pedro.
Yeah. Okay. For me, it's one of those things where it's just like, while I do recognize the improvements that Jovente have mentioned overall, honestly, yes, there are a lot of things in here like Harley and some of the stuff that is handled much better than what they do in Advent Dark Force. Especially everything involving the non-goddess routes of Advent Dark Force, like Teo said. The thing is, to me, being better than Advent Dark Force is not really saying much, because it doesn't take much to make something better than that. It's not enough to me, This game is not the offensive mess that Advent Dark Force was, yes, but it's still not very good. It has the occasional really bad, stupid thing, but most of it was one giant ball of mediocrity. The skits, like Teo said, range from mid to bad, and I'm not kidding, some of them I even have trouble staying awake because I find them so boring and inane and devoid of anything even resembling entertainment. Again, some exceptions like Lola merchandising and the Yahweh subplot, which I felt were quite amusing. Again, again, that's the kind of anime humor that you can make. You can have these kinds of jokes. You just have to write them well. You can have fan service. You can have all that stuff. Like plenty of animes, like recently 100 Girlfriends, have demonstrated you can do this kind of thing and do it well without crapping on the characters. You just need to have good writers who know what they're doing. And this new writer, to their credit, they try to improve, but it's still yes, it's better than Advent Dark Force, but that's not saying much. I can write a better script than Advent Dark Force. This is not really something that I refuse to settle for mediocrity. Yes, this is much better, but on its own merits, it's still mediocre. It's just a giant problem. The characters are mediocre. Like I said, yes, Harley is much better than she was in Advent Dark Force, but, okay, that's great, but I still don't find her particularly interesting. Like Teo said, she has a great character design that could be made into a really cool scientist character, but they still don't do that much with her. That there's still plenty of untapped potential here that's just left on the cutting room floor. As for the new characters are Al. Al is such a whatever villain for me because, like I said, in the worst route, the foreshadowing is so on the nose and so in your face that it becomes laughable. Like, to the point where it's just like, do you have so little faith in the audience that you need to constantly scream in their face, Al is the villain? Do you have so little faith in your audience that they can't tell? Like, and like Jova said, by the time he does become the villain in the worst route, he basically turns into a cartoony mustache twirling villain. Like, and it's just like, ugh. But yeah, like Theo said, they handle him better in the other route. But yeah, regardless of what you're playing, Al's ending is terrible, and just like it doesn't feel like, okay, so yeah, I don't get any satisfaction out of anything. They just feel doesn't really have a cool payoff. The only other thing I could say, yeah, I still don't care about Ifrit. Like I said, yes, like Theo said, there's nothing inherently bad about him necessarily. It's just that I just find him so boring because they don't really do much with him. He has this argument about calling Mariana old. He has the thing with Zagi, but like I've said, he gets over his brainwashing way too quick. They could have done something interesting and shown a genuine arc of a character trying to overcome indoctrination / brainwashing, but that's not really what they do. Not really. And I will stand my ground on this. I will die on this hill. Sui is by far the worst fairy in the entire franchise. Not so much because I hate Sui necessarily, but Sui is so boring design-wise. It's just a generic snake with zero creativity put into its design, and because Seguru, just like Sui and Seguru, both of the and Kiwi, they only say Kiwi, and Seguru only does dragon noises, and Sui only does snake noises. So it's not like he's the first fairy to be devoid of personality. But let me rephrase that, because even Seguru, despite not having dialogue, they still managed to implicate some personality by having funny skits with him and Apollonius, where Apollonius is trying to take care of him, treat him like a dog. He takes him for walks. At least go on.
I don't think we ever had the complaint of fairies lacking personality in Advent Dark Force, whereas it did become an issue this time.
Yeah. No,
specifically with the snake,
Yeah, because Seguru, despite not being exactly a complex character or anything, at least he had the same basic idea for what we see in something like Toothless from the How to Train Your Dragon series. He's a basic animal. And there's some nice moments between him and Apollonius, which, again, they're not anything amazing, but at least it's something, right? But Sui... Like, there's one skit. There's one skit where that thing where he tries to jokingly have Sui eat Kiwi. But that's really about it, and that doesn't really go much of anywhere. And yeah. So like, aside from that, Sui does nothing. He just says nah, and that's it. Yeah, by far the most boring fairy. Not because I hate Sui necessarily. Sui doesn't really do anything, so I don't have any reason to hate Sui, but I don't have any reason to care about him either. He's just a boring snake that does nothing, looks like a generic snake. There's no creative. Even Seguro, at the very least, Seguro, they bored to come up with some kind of a mildly interesting dragon design of sorts, I guess. Nothing amazing, but at least there was some actual effort put into Seguro's design. And even Curie, yes, they rip off Madoka Magica, but at least he looks like something. Sui just looks like a snake. Like, seriously, like, if you look at that sprite out of context, you wouldn't even be able to tell that it's a Fairy Fencer character. It just looks like a generic anime snake. Like, couldn't you put up some kind of an effort into making Sui more unique, at least in its design? Come on. Like, I get that Tsunako did not come back for this game because she left Compile Heart in 2018 because of family issues, right? And you have a new designer who took over for both this and Neptunia. I get that, but come on. Surely this new designer can do better than at least this. I seriously doubt that this is the best, especially because, again, Rin, AJ, Fleur, Glace, Al, they all have perfectly sound designs that look fine and serve their purposes. What happened with Sui? I get that I'm spending a lot of time on this, but I'm genuinely baffled by how lazy the conception of Sui is. But, okay, whatever. Aside from that, yeah, the story is mediocre. The ending with Al is... The characters are not particularly interesting for me. Fleur is just generic anime nice girl. Glace lacks much of anything to have proper development because we don't even see much of her throughout either route. The other characters, they're at best fine, at worst boring to me. That's basically it. The gameplay is, like Theo said, way too simplistic. Final Fantasy Tactics, this is not. Again, if you're someone who's new at tactics-based RPGs, this is not a bad introduction, I guess. I guess if you're like your 5-year-old's first tactical RPG, I guess this can serve that purpose. But even on that front, I argue we can even find better alternatives for that purpose even. So... And like Theo said,
be careful with some of the scenes you're fired from my old Macy.
It's abundantly clear what happened here, like Theo said in his final thoughts. They were very tight on, very constrained on time and money, so they had to take Upper Devotion Noir and just clone that, much like the original Fairfence Ref is a Neptunia clone.
If I'm to give the dev company the highest benefit of the doubt, then it would be the publishers that pretty much squeeze their budget incredibly tight to the point where they had to do that.
That's what I said earlier in this very part, Jova. I genuinely believe that if these developers were given more money and time from the executives, they probably would make something that would look better, play better, and maybe even be written better. I genuinely believe that the executives of Idea Factory are incredibly money grubby. This is not even just me saying this. Even Compile Heart fans that I've talked to, like Phelan, tell me this, that Idea Factory has very predatory business practices. So I can genuinely believe that the executives are the problem here, not so much the developers. I'm not saying the developers also are not completely innocent lambs, like, you know.
Some of the stuff doesn't even make consistent sense with where they did cut budget, because some places they could have reused something but actually chose not to. Like, they're inconsistent.
So
being inconsistent.
Well, I do agree that the executives are the primary problem. The developers are not exactly getting off scot-free either, for the reasons Jove already said, and also because the lack of budget and time does not explain the horrible molestation joke you have with Arlie. So I'm not going to, so the developers also share some blame on what's happening here. Clearly, they didn't have to write the character that way. They chose to do that. That's deliberate.
I'm always the first person to say that budget can dictate many things. It normally cannot dictate the quality of writing.
No, definitely. Unless, of course, there's executive meddling on the writing itself even. But, I don't know. This doesn't feel like it was executive mandate. Arlie's character feels intentional. It doesn't feel like an executive mandate. Not to me, at least. Maybe it is, for all I know, but, you know.
The most executive mandates I could see is them maybe telling them to tone down on some of the more egregious stuff because they were trying to sell this to a wider market. But other than that, no. Like, Fair Fence Ref was not like their mascot series. It wasn't like something that they needed to police heavily on how it represent the company or anything either.
Although it is important to remember that, I've mentioned this a good number of parts ago, it is important to remember that recently Idea Factory changed how they make their games to comply with Sony's new censorship policies, which is why Neptunia System vs. doesn't have the fan service that series is known for. This one also, in fact, one of the big reasons that this game probably doesn't have the stripping scene or the molestation scene that Theo mentioned earlier is that the Sony's policies probably also had a hand in that, because now that they can't do that anymore on PlayStation consoles, they decide, okay, fine, let's just make the games.
That's weird, though, because the Steam version usually wouldn't not be censored if it was the case.
Well, yeah,
my guess is they wanted to keep it consistent across all platforms.
That's my guess.
That's not something that's guaranteed for everything. A gaming development recently did put a disclaimer. I think it's called Princess Maker. That's something similar to this, where the only version it's censoring is the PlayStation 1.
Oh, sure,
They made sure to mention that in their statement.
Oh, I get.
I could see it being a case where, again, in their cost-saving measures, they decided, no, let's just cut it across the entire board, essentially.
I mean, and here's the thing. Well, yeah, let me use an example. Dark Rose Valkyrie had one or two, I forgot it was one or two, CGs that were censored on the PS4 Western version, not the Japanese version, just the Western versions. But the Steam version is completely uncensored. In fact, it was one of its selling points for Idea Factory International, in fact, because it was censored to comply with Sony's censorship policies. My guess is they realized that they didn't want to deal with the head pain of constantly making alternate versions of games that are more censored than others. So they said, okay, fuck it. We're going to start making these games from the ground up already with these policies in mind, just so we can have one version across all platforms. That's probably what they did. And whatever, it's fine. I don't necessarily mind that. Like I've said, it's a shame that it took this for them to finally toe down some of this stuff. But, well, what can I do? The point is, back to this. The gameplay is not interesting. Like I've said, it's incredibly... well, there's no dungeons. Like, seriously, this game is so shallow in terms of its gameplay. It has barely anything to it outside of the battle system. It has that stupid earth-shaping minigame that's basically just a glorified Minesweeper. Aside from that, it has literally nothing. You spend 70%... And yes, don't get me wrong, I'm the guy who loves Metal Gear Solid 4. Trust me. I understand that it's not like I don't necessarily like games that have 70% to 30% cutscene gameplay ratios, but if you're going to make a game like this, you better have some damn amazing storytelling to keep my attention. And Metal Gear Solid 4, this is not. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, the gameplay, very, way too simplistic and boring, blah, blah, blah. Again, it's fine, but it can't carry a 60-hour game. It can't. The music. I mean, I love Fleur's theme, all versions of it. That's the highlight of the soundtrack for me. I love the vocal version we hear at the beginning. I love the piano rendition we hear during her ending, as well as other cutscenes involving her. So I like that theme. That being said, I will say this. I do miss the super anime Sentai-esque vocal songs from the first game, because those were a guilty pleasure for me. Like, for example, I remember one that Teo was particularly confused.
My time is wasted in this world.
Yeah.
Pretend that never existed yet.
Yeah. For as much as Teo doesn't like that track, I kind of get a kick out of hearing it because I find the lyrics so ridiculously over-the-top English, and they're so funny to me. But in here, they took that track and they made an instrumental version of it. I don't know. I kind of at least the other one was more memorable to me. I feel like this track is not good to begin with. I get that, but at least I could enjoy it on a so anime bad it's fun kind of way. I can't even do that this time. I kind of miss, like, I will at the very least be grateful that they kept Full Contact, the track that played in the original game when you fairize, metamorphosize your heart, unleash the hell inside. Because again, I find these English lyrics funny, so I appreciate that. I can enjoy them on a guilty pleasure way, and that's good enough for me, like I said. Because some of these lyrics in the original game are quite, yeah. I love these lyrics, and the name of the song here is "Time's Out." And I love we talked about the nighttime is wasted in this world. I love this one better. Gathering the broken heart, couldn't see the message until I realized I hate myself more and more. What the hell does that even mean? So yeah, I kind of miss these. Aside from full content, most of the soundtrack is just instrumental stuff, and to be honest, I just completely don't even notice it. It's not bad necessarily, it's just not particularly catchy or interesting. It just feels like generic RPG music. And yes, I get the Keiichi Okabe comparisons, but I don't know, Keiichi Okabe's tracks are way better than this, I'll tell you that much. I feel like the execution, again, the Nier style that they're going for, that's a cool idea, but Kenji, you are no Keiichi Okabe. I'll tell you that much. He can pull it off, you can't, in my opinion. It's a nice effort, I applaud you for trying, but you are no Keiichi Okabe, my friend. Go back to what you do with Neptunian and make more quirky tracks. You're better at that. Aside from that, the visuals and the presentation. Okay, I've already talked about the visuals and the overall price-related stuff. We've talked about this. I'm not going to repeat again. The presentation needs to be given one final slap, though, because, man, the presentation in this game sucks. Holy shit. There's literally moments, even in this other route that's better than the other one, even this route has its problems. Like, I'm literally, where instead of having proper flashbacks, we're just looking at fucking black screens. Are you telling me you couldn't just repurpose the sprites? Are you honestly telling me that you couldn't just repurpose the sprite and put in the same yellowish filter you use in the other route? Did we really need to just have nothing but black screens? Really? You couldn't put in something better than this? And like I've said, we constantly see so many problems. Like we joked about how bad the presentation in Advent Dark Force was. This is even worse. Like, so many things that happens off screen, even more. So many things that are not properly conveyed. So many corners that are cut. Like, again, did they make this game with the budget of a hamstring? Like, holy crap! So much repurposed content, and what little new assets they made for this game are fine. But they're not particularly, and again, so much lack of, like we've commented on, there are so many times where they could have included Pappen in here, but because Pappen already has both a sprite and a full 3D character model used for battles, you could have easily reused that and actually have the Pappen subplot go somewhere. Instead, it just stops. Like, what the fuck? And again, like Theo said, we don't fight the Paiga, even though he has a Faireyes 3D character model that you could have reused. We don't fight Zenkin, even though, once again, he has a Faireyes model you could have reused. So many things that felt deliberate, because it wouldn't have taken time or money to get these things done. You could have just reused the exact same assets you already have. It felt like maybe they ran out of time. Maybe they wanted to, but they ran out of time, so they had to leave it on the cutting room floor. But it doesn't change the fact that it just feels like a wasted opportunity. So yeah, it's not great. It's better than Refrain Chord in some aspects, in the sense that it's more consistent. But like Jova said, I'm going to have to say with Jova that I genuinely found the plot... While the plot of the previous game was worse, like Theo said, I found it more interesting. Not in a good way, more interesting in the bad. Whereas this one, most of the time, I'm just bored. Because, like we've said, the game takes its sweet-ass time spinning its wheels for a lot of its second third, where the plot is barely moving forward, barely. You know, whereas Advent Dark Force, for as bad as it was, at least it felt better paced. The plot kept moving forwards. There were things happening. There were characters being introduced. They threw in the time travel twist, to throw you for a loop and stuff like that. There was stuff happening in that game, at least. In here, there's so many. Up until the last, 2 to 3 hours, so little happens in the main story, and it just feels like you're just spinning your wheels. Blah. But yeah, that's overall it. It's not very good. It's better in some ways, but I will argue it's also worse in some ways than Advent Dark Force. So it evens out to both games are not good, just for different reasons for me. Although I will say, like I said, I prefer Advent Dark Force for 2 reasons. One, I felt like the story was better paced, and second, and most importantly, I prefer the gameplay in Advent Dark Force. Because we actually have dungeons, and I do really like the Neptunia battle system. So I at the very least appreciate it. Whereas this, I don't really have the same... It doesn't really give me the same fun factor that the first game did gameplay-wise. So, yeah. Refrain Chord. What a fucking wet fart of a game.
You should refrain from playing this game.
Also, I would like to
I made a joke like that originally.
And before we finish, I'd like to mention something that Teo found in the meantime. There's a Steam review saying
2 separate, but seems to actually say that Harley is the best girl. What's wrong with you people?
Like I said, she's better in this game, I guess, but she's still no waifu material. There are better waifus you could pick.
And I think these are full of shit. Sorry.
And another one that says tactical RPG. That's not really a selling point. That's the genre description, but whatever. Great music, art, debatable.
No, Pedro. It's like Baby's Kids. It's
animation.
Very offensive Refrain Chord. It's tactical RPG.
Yeah, it's like one of the. It's like in the tagline for the DVD of the Wing Commander movie, an action-packed thrill ride, like the most generic marketing tag you could make for a movie. A fresh combination with sleek gameplay. Sleek gameplay? Where is that sleek gameplay? I didn't see any sleek gameplay here. Whatever. Go on quests to collect fairies and loot. I get fully voiced. Well, yeah, with character interactions. This game has character interactions. You know, like most games have. Okay, so what's one of the selling points for this game? We have character interactions. Because, you know, that's totally not common in games at all, right? Whatever. Ollie for best wife. You know what?
Like you said, Pedro, 2 separate one. For the record, by the time we're recording this, the game has like 25 Steam reviews. The fact that a sizable percentage of them contains this shit, I don't understand.
I guess most people really don't have much to
say.
For.
My time really is wasted in this world. Yeah, we're done, everybody. Will there be a third game? Maybe 8 years from now. Maybe, like Jova said. Maybe when we're old and decrepit on our retirement home.
The alcohol will always be ready.
So yeah, if there is another Refrain Chord game, I guess I'm there because I guess at this point it's my curse. So I guess I need to live with it. But for now, everybody, I'm glad to be done with this series because I want to explore other Idea Factory IPs. Like Chaos Wars. Yeah, fun fact. You know that memetic Chaos Wars game that people like remembered the terrible voice acting? That's an Idea Factory game as well. It's one of...
And I guess we do have actual good stuff like Dark Rose Valkyrie or God help me, the Witches and Dragon game, which turned out apparently...
and Defend Request, because I've heard that that's their best franchise in overall. Like I've even heard people say that it's even better than Neptunia.
You say Defend Request is now their new mascot?
They have 2 games and they have a spin-off and a third mainline one coming. So yeah, it at least seems like it's their new tentpole franchise since Mary Skelter finished recently. So and Neptunia is still spinning its wheels with that 5th mainline game. So for all intents and purposes, Defend Request right now is apparently their star franchise right now, I guess. I mean, yeah, there's the Neptunia spin-offs, but even Neptunia fans are getting tired of the constant barrage of spin-offs. So
the possibilities are true.
All right, so we've dragged this on too long. That was Refrain Chord for Refrain Chord, everybody. See you for a potential third game. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe at Summer Games Fest. No, I'm just joking. See you, everybody.
I mean, you joke, but to be fair, we never imagined anything like this.
This is going to be published by August, Drova. See ya.
See ya.